Someone has been watching you, not with admiration, with the specific, complicated, slightly corrosive quality of attention that comes from someone who is watching you have something they want. Who has been in your periphery or in your circle or in your world in some form, and who has been tracking your progress, your wins, your specific quality of continuing to rise with an energy that is not celebratory, with an energy that has at certain points curdled into the desire to fight. You may have felt it, that specific, slightly charged quality of how this person moves around you, the way warmth does not quite reach their eyes in certain moments. The small, subtle, easy to explain away quality of energy that does not fully match the surface of how they engage. The moments where something sharp was visible briefly before being covered. You were not imagining it, but here is the but. I want to begin with full honesty about what I am reading, because the red flags deserve their direct naming before anything else. This person does not like you. I want to say that without softening it, not that they are complicated in their feelings about you, not that there is a mix of admiration and something else that makes the dynamic complex. They do not like you. And the reason they do not like you has nothing to do with anything you have done, has nothing to do with your character or your choices or the specific way you have engaged with them. It has to do with what you have. You have things they want, not one thing, a specific, particular combination of things. Some material, some relational, some in the territory of character and presence and the specific way the world responds to you when you are being fully yourself. Things they have been working toward or hoping for or imagining themselves in possession of, and that they keep watching you acquire or embody or simply be. And the watching has produced something in them that they have not been able to metabolize cleanly. Resentment. The specific, uncomfortable, often unacknowledged form of wanting what someone else has, combined with the additional ingredient of believing on some level that you should not have it, that you are not the right person to have it, that the having of it by you is in some way a statement about them. Let me describe what the wanting to fight actually means, because wanting to fight is a specific energetic state, and I want to give it its honest content. It is not necessarily a literal desire for conflict, though for some of you, with some people, it is exactly that. The specific quality of someone who is looking for opportunities to create friction, who frames things in ways that position you as having done something wrong, who elevates small disagreements into larger confrontations because the larger confrontation gives them the arena to release the energy they have been carrying about you. For others, it is subtler than that. The fight shows up as undermining the specific, often undetectable quality of someone who is not openly hostile, but who is quietly, consistently working against you in the spaces you are not in, who speaks about you in ways that are technically accurate, but that are selected for the worst possible light, who makes comments that, to someone who does not know what is underneath them, seem like ordinary observations, but that are calibrated to introduce doubt or diminish the specific thing you have that they want. You cannot always see this in real time. It operates in the spaces between your presence and I want to speak to something that is the most important piece of this reading. They cannot stop you. What they want to fight is your momentum, your specific, self-generated, comes from inside you quality of moving forward, your capacity to continue acquiring and embodying and simply being the things that they are watching you have and that their watching cannot diminish. And here's the thing about someone whose hostility is rooted in jealousy. The hostility makes them weaker, not you. Every unit of energy they allocate to watching you and resenting what they see and constructing the specific mental architecture of why you should not have what you have and planning the undermining and executing the undermining is energy, not going toward the thing they actually want. The watching of you is consuming the resources that building themselves would require. So while they are diminished by the specific self-defeating quality of jealousy-based attention, you are doing what you have always done, continuing, building, becoming more of what you are becoming. So while they are diminished by the specific self-defeating quality of jealousy-based attention, you are doing what you have always done, continuing, building, becoming more of what you are becoming. I want to describe this mechanism more specifically because I think understanding it changes how you relate to what is happening. Jealousy is a resource leak. Every moment this person spends watching you with resentment is a moment not spent on the thing they are watching you have, not spent on the specific work of building toward what they want, not spent in the direction of their own becoming. The watching produces nothing except more of itself, more evidence of the gap between where they are and where you are, more material to feed the resentment with, more investment in an orientation that returns nothing. It is a self-sustaining loop that goes nowhere, and the longer they stay in the loop, the further they fall behind the thing they are watching, which is quietly the most significant consequence of this entire dynamic. Not what they are doing to you, what they are doing to themselves. By watching you instead of building themselves, they are ensuring that the gap they resent continues to grow. They are, through the specific self-defeating architecture of sustained jealousy, doing more to perpetuate your advantage than anything you could do yourself. Their resentment serves you, even as they intend the opposite. Let me describe the but, because the but in this reading's title is the most important word and it deserves its full examination. You have what they want, but having what they want does not make you vulnerable to them. It makes them visible to you. That is the reversal. The specific, slightly ironic reversal of a dynamic where someone is trying to fight you and ends up simply showing you exactly who they are. Where the energy of their hostility becomes the clearest possible map of your specific strengths. Where the thing they want to fight is the thing that reveals in the wanting to fight it that it is something worth having. If you had nothing, they would not be watching. If you were not rising, there would be nothing to resent. The resentment is the evidence of the quality of what you have built, of the specific, real, undeniable quality of what you are and what you are producing and what the world is beginning to recognize in you, of the specific, visible difference between where you are and where they are, a difference that they experience as threatening and that you should experience as confirmation. Confirmation that the direction is correct. Confirmation that the building is working. Confirmation that what you are is exactly what you should be being. I want to speak to something specific about the quality of what you have that produces this kind of attention. It is not simply material. People do not watch with this level of sustained resentment generating intensity over things that are purely material. Material things can be rationalized, can be attributed to luck or circumstance or timing or access that someone else simply did not have, can be understood as external to the person who has them. What you have that cannot be rationalized away is internal. The way you carry yourself, the specific quality of how you exist in a room, the way you engage with things with a particular quality of presence and intention and genuine investment that produces results not because of luck or circumstance, but because of who you are, that is what cannot be rationalized. That is what is most difficult to watch in someone you resent, because internal things cannot be attributed to external circumstances, cannot be dismissed as luck, cannot be explained away in any comfortable way that preserves the narrative that you do not deserve what you have. They simply are what you are, visible and undeniable and present, regardless of how much energy is directed at dismissing them. That is what they are watching. That is what they cannot fight. Confirmation that what you are is exactly what you should be being. I want to add something to this because I think it is the most psychologically useful reframe in this entire reading. When you encounter someone's resentment of what you have, the instinctive response is often to question the having, to wonder whether the thing they resent is genuinely something to be proud of, or whether their reaction to it reveals something uncomfortable about how you acquired it or how you hold it. Resist that response. Not because questioning yourself is bad, because in this specific case, the questioning is being prompted by the wrong source. The person whose resentment is generating the question has a compromised relationship to an accurate assessment of your having, because their resentment is not based on an accurate assessment. It is based on an emotional reaction to the gap between what you have and what they have. Their reaction is not an evaluation of the quality of what you have. It is an evaluation of the size of the gap. And the gap is not your fault, your responsibility, or evidence of anything wrong with you or what you have built. It is simply the difference between two people's trajectories. You owe no apology for your trajectory. You owe no reduction of what you have built to make someone else's watching more comfortable. What you owe is exactly what you have been doing, continuing to build it. Tell me in the comments if this person has made themselves known to you. If the energy I am describing, the watching that is not celebratory, the warmth that does not quite reach the eyes, the subtle undermining in the spaces between your presence, is something you have been feeling without having had a clear framework for understanding it. Tell me if this reading is finding the right address. I want to speak to what you do with this information, because knowing someone does not like you and knowing what is behind it does not automatically produce clarity about how to respond. First, you do not fight back. Not because you cannot, not because you lack the capacity to engage with someone on this terrain, or to protect yourself, or to call out what is happening when it is happening, but because fighting back would produce the one thing that could actually shift the power dynamic in this situation away from you. It would give them attention, the specific organized around them quality of attention that fighting someone requires, where your energy, which is currently going toward the things you are building and the life you are creating and the continued becoming of who you are, would be redirected toward the dynamic with this person. That redirection is what they want, not consciously necessarily, but energetically. Their attention has been organized around you, and the specific unpleasant quality of that organizing is partly driven by the hope that it will produce some reciprocal organizing from you, some indication that you are aware of and affected by their watching. Do not give them the indication. The specific way you handle this is by continuing in whatever direction you have been continuing in whatever the specific form of your forward momentum currently takes, in whatever the next stage of building what you are building looks like in your life. Continue, not defiantly, not with the specific performative quality of someone who is continuing in order to make a point to the person watching, simply because continuing is what you do. Because the life you are building is genuinely interesting and genuinely demanding and genuinely worth your full attention. Because the thing they are jealous of did not produce itself from the quality of being watched, but from the quality of being worked on. Work on it. That is the complete response to someone who is watching you with resentment. Keep building the thing they are watching. I want to speak to something about the protection piece, because while the response to this dynamic is continuation, not engagement, continuation does not mean unawareness. Know who this person is in the specific, clear-eyed, no illusions way of someone who has accurate information about how they are being engaged with by someone in their circle. Not paranoid awareness, accurate awareness. Know what does not go through this person. The same principle applies here, as in any situation involving someone whose orientation toward you is not genuinely supportive. The specific plans and hopes and vulnerable because they are still developing things that are in the most sensitive stage of their building do not get shared with someone who is watching you with resentment, not dramatically withheld, simply not offered. The warm things can flow. The ordinary connection of people who are in the same world can continue. What does not flow is access to the things that could be undermined while they are still fragile. Let me speak to what the future of this dynamic looks like, because it does not stay the same indefinitely. One of two things happens. The first is that this person does the specific, difficult, entirely personal work of examining where their resentment is actually coming from and deciding to redirect their energy toward building what they want rather than watching what you have. Some people arrive at that when the cost of the watching, which includes the specific drain of maintaining resentment as an ongoing orientation, finally exceeds the psychological returns. If they do that work, the dynamic changes. Not into a simple friendship necessarily, but into something that is no longer characterized by the watching with resentment energy, something that has less charge, something that you might not even notice changing because the absence of the watching energy is less visible than the presence of it. The second possibility is that they do not do that work, that the resentment continues and deepens and eventually produces the specific, often self-destructive consequences that sustained resentment tends to produce for the person carrying it, where the energy they have been allocating to watching you consumes resources that their own life required, where the building they did not do because they were watching you becomes visible as an absence they have to account for. In either case, what you have built continues. What you are becomes more fully what it is. The trajectory you are on does not change because someone in your periphery is watching it with the wrong energy. It simply continues. In either case, what you have built continues. What you are becomes more fully what it is. The trajectory you are on does not change because someone in your periphery is watching it with the wrong energy. It simply continues. I want to say one more thing about the two possible futures because I think the second one deserves more attention than I gave it. The one where they do not do the internal work and the resentment deepens. What happens in that future is not a problem for you. It is a problem for them. The specific accumulating cost of sustained resentment falls on the person carrying it, not on the person being resented. The emotional weight of maintaining that orientation day after day, the drain of the resource leak I described, the specific invisible but real cost to their own relationships and their own work and their own daily experience of life that comes from having a significant portion of their interior allocated to watching someone with the wrong energy. All of that falls on them, and none of it touches what you are building, because what you are building is not vulnerable to being watched. It is not damaged by being resented. It does not require the approval or the goodwill or the absence of hostility from the people who are watching it to continue growing. It grows because of what you bring to it, not because of what anyone watching brings. As we close, I want to give you the fullest picture of your actual position in this situation. You are ahead, not in the competitive sense of having beaten someone to something, in the simple, factual, entirely undramatic sense of being further along the path you are on than you were before. Further along than this person expected. Further along than their watching predicted. Further along in certain ways than you may have acknowledged to yourself because you have been occupied with the continuing rather than with the accounting of what the continuing has produced. Count it. Look at what you have built, at what you have become, at the specific, real, demonstrable difference between where you were and where you are. Not for the purpose of showing anyone, for the purpose of knowing yourself, what the journey has produced. Because knowing what you have built is part of protecting it. And the person who knows the full value of what they have built is considerably harder to undermine than the person who is uncertain about their own progress. Know what you have. It is more than they have been letting you believe. And it is entirely, completely, in every dimension, yours